Welcome to the Lemons and Pineapples podcast. I'm your host, Emma O'Brien, personal development coach, HeartMath practitioner, dog photographer, and entrepreneur. In this podcast, I share tools, strategies, and amazing guest interviews to help you improve your mindset and your well-being with a sprinkle of fun and probably some mention of dogs along the way. So without further ado, let's squeeze the day. Before we jump into today's episode, I'm looking for a handful of people who can beta test a new coaching package I'm offering. I work with people who are stuck in their lives or careers and would like support in making changes, as well as people who battle with the effects of stress and anxiety. If you feel you would benefit from some coaching, which I'm going to offer at a 50% discount for my beta testers, please send me a DM on Instagram at Emma O'Brien Coach and we can arrange a time to chat. Hi folks, welcome to episode 16 of the podcast. Today my guest is Kathryn Regganie and we're going to be talking about taming your drama dragons. So welcome to the podcast, Kathryn. Please tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Great. Thanks for having me on here, Emma. I'm really excited to have this opportunity to talk with you and your listeners here today. You know, a lot of times people don't realize that it's the most smart, successful women that have the hardest time sleeping and relaxing and enjoying life. Because to the world, it looks like they have it all. But underneath all of those accomplishments, the tension that they feel in their body can actually lead to eventual chronic body aches and pains, relationship tensions, and limits on their overall happiness and well-being. Even though they seem like they're the toughest cookies and can go years tolerating the underlying exhaustion and overwhelm that erode their power, they often don't get help until something hits the fan. A life drama sparks a breakdown at home, at work, or in their personal life. Well, I've been a corporate professional for over 15 years, and I've also been an energy healer. And now I get to combine the two to support these stressed out superwomen so that they can really sustainably become those resilient leaders that they know they are. And I've created these systems because I was that corporate professional, overworked, exhausted. I had my own drama dragons rage from time to time. And so once I really learned how to understand those dragons and really how to tame those dragons, not necessarily slay them because they really do have an important role in our lives, then things started getting really easy for me. Mm-hmm. You know, my confidence started growing. I started making decisions for myself, for me, nobody else, which really helped with my confidence at work and at home.
Amazing. I was going to ask you when you answered my question, I'm assuming you were one of these stressed out super women. And it's something I can certainly relate to. And I've been having lots of conversations with women who are high achievers. And I think often high achieving women look like they have it all together from the outside, because I think we become very astute at putting the facade on and actually, you know, being in the role. But it's like you say, it's behind closed doors. It's at home where relationships are falling apart. Things aren't working because all the time goes into the achieving, it goes into the professional role, and the sort of personal side of things really falls apart, I think, for want of a better phrase.
Right. Exactly. And that's kind of what happened to me. You know, I was married over 20 years ago to my first husband. And, you know, because of things that happened between us, our relationship really did fall apart because I was working so much. He was working so much. Neither one of us, we were so young, neither one of us knew to even put that effort towards the relationship that we had. And it fell apart. And it was devastating to me. And I'm sure it was to him too, but that's when I really felt my own drama dragons coming out. And, you know, that's when I really realized, you know, I've really got to get myself pulled together so that I can, you know, remain in business and keep that integrity that I had already built up. because I could have easily been that fire dragon we'll talk about in a minute and, just burned it all down. And that would not have been good for me or anybody.
No, and I think it's a very interesting thing that you talk about is we are used to high achieving men in our societal view of the world. That's how a lot of male CEOs are. And I think as women are progressing and as we're becoming more equal in society, it's learning how to navigate when you have two high achievers in a house. It's hard. My own example, my fiance, I refer to on here as the engineer. The engineer runs his own business. He works sometimes 7 days a week. He works very long hours. He's under a lot of stress. And I'm running two businesses at the moment. There's a lot going on. And what tends to be something that we clash about is who is making food in the evening, because I'm not a stay-at-home wife type person. And I don't really have time any more than he does for prepping food. So we've had to have a bit of a system in place where I do it certain days, he does it other days. And then if one person can't quite do it, the slack's picked up. But that is something that is quite a difficult dynamic to work around, because there are two of us working full-time long hours. It's hard to navigate those waters.
Right. It is difficult, but it's really interesting, Emma, because you talked about, yes, there is some tension there, and yet it works. You both understand that something needs to happen, and you've created those boundaries. You've delegated those certain days that you're preparing food, certain days he's preparing food, and maybe that switches depending on what his project load is or what your project load is, where you can be flexible, but you've still got those boundaries set, which is really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're very lucky here that we have a housekeeper who comes in 2 days a week. So all of the other stuff is dealt with, because I don't want to think about what would have to happen if we were both having to clean and do everything else. I mean, it would be a disaster. Anyway, I digress. So tell me about drama dragons, Kathryn.
Okay. Well, the drama dragons, I created the drama dragons because I thought it was a really fun way to talk about some of what comes up for us, specifically women, when we are dealing with all of those things, preparing meals, cleaning the house, being that incredibly successful businesswoman or corporate professional. And sometimes we can kind of not show our most beautiful side, which is really what I consider to be the drama dragons. We all have them. Sometimes we might have more than one, but the more we can really connect with them, understand them, and then we can learn how to tame those dragons. Don't mind, I'll go through the dragons here.
Please tell us about the dragons. I'm very curious.
Yeah. And it's nice, Emma, you took the drama dragon quiz. So I know that you're a fire dragon. I love it. I love it. So the fire dragon is the dragon that appears when plans are not coming together well, and other people are just not pulling their own weight. There's no communication there. So all of the pressure is being put back on you, and that can be really aggravating. So you tend to let people know that in maybe not such a nice way. You'll notice this dragon when you start, the fire builds up inside, and sometimes you take aim at those innocent people. I like to say sometimes you accidentally burn their faces off with those unintentional nasty comments. Whoops.
Yes.
I've had that happen.
Yes.
Those comments coming out and saying, "Oh, I'm really sorry."
So the fire dragon sounds like a slightly angry dragon.
A slightly angry dragon, yes.
The dragon that might choose violence.
Well, potentially. I don't know if I want to say violence, but
I have to say I'm pretty good. I can relate to this because I am someone who can get quite agitated and worked up, but I have done enough work on myself to know that it's best not to send that email, not to reply immediately, and to just step away from whatever might be going on, if it's possible to, so that I don't say something I perhaps shouldn't.
Correct. Yes. And we'll get into some of those steps, but I love how you just take a step away, which is a really great strategy to really start to tame these dragons. You're feeling that fire build up inside. You know there's an emotion behind it, and you know what to do to tame that dragon. So that's fantastic. The next dragon that I talk about is the smoke dragon. Maybe not quite so angry. This dragon appears when you don't take time for yourself to recharge. And you'll notice this dragon when other people start to notice your unusually grouchy and negative behavior. So not quite so angry, but maybe a little bit more snidely, shall we say.
The passive aggressive dragon.
The passive aggressive, exactly. And then there's the stoic dragon. The stoic dragon appears when you keep all of the crap inside, all of those emotions inside, so that you don't feel appear vulnerable, which many of us women don't want to show that part of ourselves. So you'll recognize this dragon when you are running to the bathroom so that nobody sees the tears running down your face. Something has just happened, and that is it. You've had it, and there's no stopping it. So those tears start running down your face, and you run and hide so nobody else sees it.
The repressing dragon.
What's that?
The repressing dragon.
The repressing dragon. Absolutely. The next one is the unsettled dragon. And this dragon shows up when you're focusing on too many ideas at once. We get creative, don't we? And then you start to feel disorganized and disconnected, and you're not really sure which way to go next. That's the unsettled dragon. So it's not necessarily that you're feeling angry or snidely or anything like that, but you're just really unsettled, and that can be disconcerting as well.
Yeah.
And then the ice dragon. This is a fun one. The ice dragon. She shows up when you've overpromised on deliverables and you've not delegated those things to those who are capable. So you'll recognize her when the balls start dropping all around you and you're feeling really disappointed in yourself for not doing better, because you're usually really good at juggling those balls. So those are the dragons. And really, you really touched, Emma, on how to really start controlling those or taming those dragons is when you start noticing these emotions or these dragons start to come up within your body, then you can do something about it. And I really start to teach people how to ground into their body, because this body of ours is a really great navigation system. So like you'd mentioned, when you're feeling that fire, you take a step back, you stop, you take a step back, and you don't press send. You might write the email, but you don't press send. You take that breath. I teach people to ground into themselves and really feel into what it is that's making them feel that fire. And is it something that you need to share with somebody, or is it something you need to work on yourself? So that's how I really help get people in touch with their dragons to really start to settle them.
Could you say more about what you mean by grounding into your body?
Absolutely. It's interesting because, Emma, have you ever heard anybody just say, oh, it's okay, you just need to ground yourself?
Yes. And for grounding yourself, for me, means two things: going and standing on the grass and actually grounding with the grass or the soil or the earth. And the other thing is kind of what I get from it is just having a moment to sit with yourself and take a bit of time to feel into what's happening, if possible. What's interesting, and I'm sure you can say a bit more about this as well, is when people are very reactive, very overwhelmed, and really repressing stuff, they're not necessarily very in touch with what's going on in their bodies. So I've had clients before who I've been doing HeartMath techniques with to get them to really calm their stress response, who have no idea what's going on from the neck down.
Absolutely. I'm glad I asked you this question, because I've had clients and students, when we start talking about grounding, they get it from a conceptual standpoint: go stand in the grass, go hug a tree, but they don't really understand how to do it for themselves. It is nice. It is grounding to go walk in the grass. It feels good. You can feel your feet on the ground. It does feel good to go hug a tree, but to really get in tune with this vessel that we have, this navigation system, I think is one of the most important things that so many people don't talk about. So when I talk to people about grounding, it's very different for everybody, but in general, we start talking about that breath work.
Yes.
That's what you do, with the HeartMath, bringing down that nervous system, calming things down. But we also follow that breath to your feet. We bring that breath into your feet. We bring that breath into your body. And then once we get in touch with, we can feel our body. We can then feel the connection between the earth and the divine, whatever that looks like for you, your higher self, or whatever divine source that you work with. Once you really get that connection and you're part of that connection, then you can really, like you said, go in and really allow yourself to feel what you're feeling. So for instance, if, you're having a disagreement with somebody, your spouse or your boss, and you're really fired up about it, you can really take that time, ground into yourself, and feel in your body, where is this coming from? Is it your heart center? Is it your lower back? Are you getting a headache from it? Because once you can really tune into this navigation system, ground into it, go inside of yourself, then you can start to ask those questions of yourself. What is this back pain about? What is this headache about? What is this heartache about? Because our bodies give us clues all the time about what's going on. And then as you start to make decisions or pretend you've made a decision, you can go into yourself. How does this decision feel? Is it okay to press the send button now? No. Okay, that doesn't feel good. So now let's go back at that email. Look at it from another perspective, because now we have a choice. Now that we've grounded into ourselves, one of the choices we have is to look at it from another perspective. Okay, this has got me fired up. I'm wondering what this other person is thinking. They're just as fired up. Maybe we're just not communicating well. Maybe I haven't set my boundaries appropriately. Maybe this person doesn't know all of the other things that I have on my plate. Maybe I don't know what the other person has on their plate. So maybe it's best we sit down and communicate instead of firing off that nasty email. So that's what I mean by really grounding into yourself the way that's right for you, so that you can make those better decisions, so that you can keep those relationships in top order.
So I think what you've said about feeling into your body and understanding the responses is one of the things I learned in the Martha Beck course I did about calibrating your body compass and getting really in touch with a somatic yes, a gut feeling yes, and a gut feeling no, and being able to actually ask the question, does this feel good to me? And generally, you'll get a feeling response of yes or no, and you can tune into that. And the more you get into your body and get in touch with where those feelings are, I think the easier it is to use that as a gauge. The other thing I've found really helpful is sitting with feelings and naming them. I feel really angry right now. And sometimes just saying it out loud, throwing something, I might occasionally throw something across a room, doing something. So I am most definitely not the ice dragon or the stoic dragon. I'm the throw it dragon, not the stoic dragon.
I love it. I love it.
So I think it is just naming them sometimes. And actually, I've often got I refer to her as my work wife. I've got a great friend who also runs her own business who, if there's something going on, I will pick up the phone and she will pick up the phone and we will have a rant, which is much better to have a talk with each other than unleash hell on somebody else. Because the one thing I have found, and you've touched on it with the communication point, is it is very useful if you've had something that's very triggering to take all of the emotion out of your response, because you don't then give the other person more fuel for a heated discussion. And you said it as well, and I think it is the most brilliant piece of advice anybody can take away from this is go and talk to somebody in person where there is a conflict rather than pinging emails, WhatsApps, messages backwards and forwards. Be brave, pick up the phone or walk to someone's office and say, could we just have a talk about this for a minute? Because I guarantee I can't guarantee, but for the most part, it will diffuse something that can just build and build and build if it's not dealt with head on.
Right. And I really like how you talked about, when you need that support from somebody, you call your friend, not the person that you're angry with or about ready to burn their face off. I think that's a really important perspective. We all need that support system. And that's what, people like you, Emma, and what I do is we are those non-emotionally attached support systems for these women who just need to get a different perspective. Maybe they come to you or me and say, hey, this is what's going on. And I'm really triggered by this. And I just need some help to diffuse the situation and move forward. And with somebody who's neutral in the situation, who has no emotional baggage with it, if you will, those are the people that can really support you in those times and maybe even hold up the mirror and see into your dark corners that you can't see or you prefer not to go look at. So that's where that support system is really, really very important.
Yes, I agree with you entirely. And I think sometimes having somebody else be able to, when you're very worked up, be able to say to you, well, maybe this other person who is working on your last nerve is not purposefully doing that. Maybe their worldview is different to yours. And maybe it's a case of you just need to soothe and calm and then start to have a look at how you could see things from their point of view and maybe work with them so they can see from your point of view and you can resolve conflicts. And I have found and I'd be interested to know your point of view. Oftentimes when I'm coaching people and they're in conflict or they're frustrated with somebody else, a lot of the conflict is in their own thoughts. It's not actual conflict that's really happening. It's conflict that they think is happening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would absolutely agree with you 100% because we don't know that other person's perspective. We only know our perspective, and our perspective is from our experiences. So nobody else has had the exact experiences that I've had or that you've had. So that's how our emotions come up, just based on our past experiences. and those get stuck in this body.
Mm.
And that's why it's so important to ground into your own physical body to figure out what's really going on, because it might be something that's triggering you that you remember happening when you were 12 years old and your brother pushed you off your bike or something like that. And you felt like the victim. So now you're feeling out like a victim again. And so now how do we work with that victim mentality to change it so that you can be the victor?
Yes, I think that's such an interesting thing, that our circumstances tend to be influenced by the lens through which we see them, and then our thoughts are influenced by that, and so it goes on. So it's and I think once you start to recognize the triggers in life, because often we're triggered in similar situations that maybe are in different outfits, but and then you can start to recognize, ooh, this is something that's triggering me again, and it's somebody else that's triggering me with a similar situation. What's going on in me? I always like to think, one time maybe it could be you or the other person, but if a similar situation or pattern keeps repeating and you're thinking, why does this keep happening to me? I think sometimes that's an invitation to start to have a look at what pattern is playing out here. Why am I being triggered repeatedly by the same thing? And what can I do to start to understand that and then heal the underlying wound that causes the trigger? And I think that's where coaching work comes in so powerfully, because that's something we obviously you and I help our clients do.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point, is repeating those patterns. And a lot of times we're so in the pattern, we oftentimes don't see it. So having a coach or that support system to say, hey, look, this is happening again. You're being the victim again. And why is this? Do you know you can make a choice? It's not their choice, it's your choice. And you've got several choices. You can stay, you can go. I don't know if you've got do you know the Kenny Rogers song, Know When to Hold 'Em, Know When to Walk Away, and Know When to Run? So there's choices out there.
Absolutely. And I think it's empowering yourself to know that in any given situation you have a choice. And it's I recorded, I'm just trying to think, I think it was episode 3 or 4 of my podcast. I had a coaching session, and my client that shared with her permission what we discussed in the coaching session. And she was having a situation with a work colleague, and she said to me, I just wish she would behave in the way I want her to. And we had to talk through, and I said, you can change the way you behave. You can't do anything about her. So how do we change the way you respond to her in a way that is less triggering for you? And what came out of it was, my client just needed to find a different way to ask for what she wanted from her colleague at work. As simple as that. We came up with a plan for that, and I got a message the next day saying, that was brilliant. I've used what we talked about in our session, and I've got exactly what I wanted from her. So it was so powerful, just that slight shift.
Right, exactly. And really, the only people we can change is ourselves. And we have a choice on how to do that. And with her, it was really just changing her perspective and changing the way she communicated, instead of expecting somebody else to change to suit her needs, because that person probably had no idea.
No, absolutely not, because the other person's not a mind reader. And I'd started to talk through with my client, how are you asking for things? And the requests were a bit vague and a little bit, she should kind of know I want this. And we just had to totally unpack that and have a look at it and say, nobody can know what you want unless you explicitly tell them. Nobody's mind readers. And this is something that's come up in my own relationship with the engineer. So I'm very familiar with this little pattern of somebody expecting somebody else to do something because they should know. I mean, really.
Right, exactly. And it's really funny because I have an engineer as well. And it's funny because sometimes if I'm doing something, he'll come in and start asking questions, or he'll be doing something and I'll start asking questions. And he's like, "What? Am I doing something wrong?" No, no, no. You're not doing anything wrong. You're just not doing it the way I would have wanted you to do it. And then we just get a really good laugh about it. We just go neutral about it. And it really isn't that either one of us are doing anything wrong. It's just a different perspective. And yeah, I'd like him to do something this way, and he'd like me to do something that way. But we get it done regardless.
That's brilliant. And I think it's just so good to have real life examples of what happens. Just because we're coaching doesn't mean that everything is altogether and perfect. It's not. I think we're all still doing our own work in our own relationships, because that's life. It's complicated.
It is, and it's ever evolving. And that's why I think it's so important too to get coaching, so that we can continually develop ourselves, make ourselves better, so that we can be better people for our people and encourage them. So leading by example.
Absolutely. So Kathryn, this has been a really enlightening conversation for me. And I would love to close by asking you, which is your favorite drama dragon?
Oh my goodness, my favorite. I love them all so much. But I think I like the stoic dragon.
Okay.
I think that represents so many of us. I know that represents me. I'm one of those people who tend to keep my emotions inside. And it's a process. It's a learning pathway. So it's something that I really enjoy learning to not be so closed up. And then I might say my second is the fire dragon. I really do like the fire dragon. The fire dragon is actually the first one that I came up with.
Okay.
So the fire dragon does have a special place in my heart as well.
And I think it's a really great way of being able to add a fun spin onto what is quite a difficult thing to deal with, is dealing with feelings, and being able to have a bit of a sense of humor about it, because I think that always helps to make the growth work that you have to do to understand yourself and be able to play to your strengths and work through the more challenging aspects of your personality. I won't say weaknesses, because I don't think they are. It's just how we're all a bit different, and we all have growth points to be working on. So I think it's a really fun way of framing that up.
Yeah, that was my intention. So I'm glad you're enjoying it.
I think it's brilliant. For my listeners, where can they find out which sort of drama dragon they are?
You can go to dramadragonquiz.com, and it's just a fun quiz. It takes you about 2 minutes to answer the questions, and then it'll give you your results of the fire dragon that's most likely to sabotage your leadership. Mm-hmm. And then if you put your email address in, you'll also get a full report and some other information over 5 emails or so, just to get you some more information about the drama dragons and about me and how they kind of came to fruition. So again, that's dramadragonquiz.com.
Amazing. Thank you very much. I will pop that in the show notes. So folks listening, please go and check out which drama dragon you are. It would be really great, actually, if you would let both Kathryn and I know what your results are, because it's always quite fun to find out when people have done that and what's resonated. Kathryn, where can people find you on social media?
On social media, I'm on LinkedIn, Kathryn Regganie, and I'm on Facebook. Again, that would be Kathy Regganie on Facebook. So you can find me there.
Yeah, brilliant. So please go and take the quiz, folks, and then let me know which drama dragon you are. Kathryn, thank you again for joining me today. This has been a really fun conversation, and I've really enjoyed our time together.
Thank you, Emma. Me too.
Thank you for listening, everybody, as always, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you've enjoyed it, please share with your friends, and be sure to leave me a 5-star rating and review, especially if you're listening on Pine Apple Podcasts. To find out more about my one-on-one coaching, please visit my website, which is emmaobriencoach.com. And remember, folks, when life gives you lemons, you can always choose another fruit. See you next time.